with Renee.
Jared is gonna owe me so much money. I'm just telling you that right now.
First of all, we got all kinds of problems because people always get mad when we pre-record because they'd be like, "Wait a minute, this ain't this ain't live. What's going on?"
Mm-mm.
And then they're gonna be trying to figure out why you here.
You know what? Last time y'all had me on here, y'all pre-record. What y'all trying to do, man? Y'all trying to get me turned into one of them prophetic men? Wow.
This is what happens when everybody's trying to do. So it's either do it this way or cancel. And I'll be trying not to cancel if I can help it. We haven't canceled yet. We've gone however many weeks straight without not having a show on a Saturday.
What episode this is? You're in your 30s, right?
No, it might be 29. It might be 29, actually. Almost.
Full grown adult. I'm out to the adults.
All right. So welcome, everybody. As you can see, Jared is not here. We get
nice dark skin Jared. Dark skin Jermaine, dark skin Jared.
But Jared is on the road, so I guess there's a good possibility he will be in the chat. I guess it's possible, depending on what his traveling thing is.
Mm-hmm.
I am actually going to be on the West Coast on Saturday, so I don't know if I'm going to be awake yet when this is when this is playing. We'll see. Maybe I'll set the alarm. I don't like not being in the chat if we're not going to be live. So if people need to be mad, I can see it. So we'll see what happens. And then we also have a tendency, I guess, of pre-recording with you before EYL tapes. So
right. With some topics merging and stuff.
Yeah. Always. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but I guess we'll figure it out.
We'll see.
We'll figure it out. We'll see. I don't know what's on y'all run sheet for tomorrow. So
we got some heat tomorrow. I mean, obviously I think everybody's gonna be talking about these encampments and uprising and campus thing, but we have a bunch of, like, I guess, liberal beef or whatever you want to call it, or some people call themselves centrists, right? So we got some black centrist beef tomorrow a little bit, so we'll see what that looks like.
Oof. I can't be paying them people no mind. I can't do it. They stress me out. Completely. But we are going to talk encampments because, as you know, I work in a school and there'll be some madness going on in the regular school system. And that has been ongoing since last fall, the madness in the regular school system. So I guess it was just a matter of time before it spread to college campuses. So my struggle with this is always my struggle with all things, is trying to figure out how come so many people have no idea what's going on. So, like, right. I was talking to somebody the other day and they didn't know why they were using tents. Like, they didn't know the significance of the tent, like having a tent. And they were like, well, is it because of, like, they were thinking like homelessness. And I was like, I mean, if you want to be that broad, yes. But like, if you take a moment to look at any pictures that are coming out of Gaza, you will see that all the families are living in tents because they're completely displaced on top of the rubble of where their houses used to be.
Right.
And the person I was talking to was like, really? And for a split second, I wanted to be like, how do you not know this? Like, How did this information not get to you? And then I had to remind myself that most people are not watching this stuff. And it's just an unfortunate reality of the situation. I think a lot of people just have literally like no clue.
Yeah. No, so I came to Houston with my cousin, and there's a couple other his friends, and as I was actually prepping for this and then tomorrow's show or yesterday's show, they're so I just asked them like simple questions because you know how like there's always this, oh, it started on October 7th and blah blah blah, and then we kind of talked around that, and like they can acknowledge that the US on some silly or weird stuff, but they just really it just doesn't, it doesn't, there's no emotional connection to it. And so I think that's always interesting. And this is actually the second time I've had a conversation with my cousin about it. The first time he didn't know what was going on in Palestine, and he didn't know what was going on in Atlanta, Cop City, where he worked at the hospital in Atlanta. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a tough thing. And I know that actually swerves into some of the things we're going to be talking about today on how to get people emotionally connected to what the fuck is going on. Excuse me if I ain't supposed to be cursing.
No, you're good.
But also, so this also reminds me of when I was in Colombia. We went to La Guajira region in Colombia. And this is when I was leaving. After I graduated college, I went with Avi Chomsky, and one of the struggles we had was Afro-Colombians were, being displaced, dealing with Gary Drummond and his mines, and so one of the actions were getting a bunch of those displaced people plane tickets and having them camp on Gary Drummond's lawn in Alabama, and that was the thing that kind of really got other people or the U.S. knowing what was happening, and also like when they was reporting to the UN that humans wasn't living there, this was unhabitable land, and that's why they could mine, but literally the humans look like us. So this tent demonstration is definitely bringing up memories of that. So it's rough though.
It is rough, and if people did not catch Millennials Killing Capitalism tonight, they actually did. The whole show was about encampments and like lessons from Occupy and some other activists who use this method. And it was an interesting conversation. I had to shut it down so I could make sure I could prep for us to get started. But I would really recommend that people go back and watch that, because there was some good information, and part of why when Jared was like, well, ask Geechee, and I was like, yeah, let's ask Geechee, was because we have so much conversation we need to have about like the practicalities of organizing around policy and engaging people, and how do you do this? Like, how do you get people to really see like what's going on and to figure out what path is an important one to focus on. So right. We're going to touch on as much of that as we can before we shut it down. And I don't want to get, even though Jared's not on, it's going to be him who gets in trouble with Warrior class if we don't end on time. So we got to make sure we get our time limits right. But before we go into all the articles and the clips and all that stuff, right? I don't know if you've ever seen this woman's Instagram page, but on line 2, using Lauryn Hill, I love what this woman does. And
wait, and this is Lauryn. Oh,
it's not Lauryn Hill, but her lyrics. What she does is she takes popular music and then she rewrites the lyrics.
All right, I'm gonna have to cue her up and start her over, because I think I probably already hit the start button. So let's see how we do this. We don't get a copyright.
But you have to make it hard. See, genocide is not a battle.
Oh, wow.
And we know who's left with scars. Tell me who they have to be to trade your humanity. See, no one cares to white folks bleed. And brown folks just get killed. No matter how damn low they go, you always seem to let us know who is worthless.
Oh, wow.
Who is worthless. And then we try to advocate. You say that we're the ones who hate. This is crazy.
Where do you find this lady at?
This is crazy.
How dope is that?
Yo.
She kills it every time. She kills it.
Yo, when did she? When? How long has she been? I mean, that's almost literally like the perfect propaganda tool for the God. And I mean the lyrics too. Like she was hitting.
I know. We've played her before, and I don't have no words because every time she does this,
everybody.
Yeah, and I really like. She just does a really good job of picking the right songs and figuring out how to change the lyrics. Just so,
and she can blow. And you know that's a talent. Like I literally used to I can't even remember the workshop that I had for my young people. I don't remember what I called, but we literally did that. Like we would keep the same tempo, keep the same cadence and change the lyrics, and like that stuff is tough. Right.
It is not easy. It is not easy. But she's dope. And we've every now and again I like find, she's on my feed. So every time I go to Instagram, if she's released something new, it pops up on my feed. And so I always watch to see which which song she's picked this time. And I saw that and I was like, I just feel like that's perfect. And you have to do it. You can't not play that. We have to play that.
Wow. So what is Leah?
I think it's Layla Hagazi. I think, but I'm not. That's a guess, and I hope I don't kill her name. But she's dope.
Well, I think for the people who maybe want to find it, it's like this, maybe. Layla Hagazi. Yeah. Well, she'll get a follow. She'll get a follow for me. So
there you go. There you go. She got, and some of her stuff, like she has one about food, and she's like, all that food is Middle Eastern. Don't be stealing our food. She's dope. She's dope. So yeah. It was definitely worth it. Definitely.
I appreciate that share. I like that so much. I promise you, I'm about to be sending that joint out to a bunch of people.
There you go. Share her.
And Lauryn Hill, if Lauryn Hill don't repost her, Lauryn Hill gets canceled.
I ain't starting that fight.
Lauryn Hill got to go. She can't repost that. No, but what if Lauryn Hill? Whoa, shit. Zion. Ain't she named her son Zion? What if she? Yeah. But what if Lauryn Hill actually like try to get some kind of copyright infringement to make her take that down because she's I don't know. Let me stop because I don't.
You know what? And I don't know nothing about them rules and laws and stuff. And for all we know, she was allowed. I mean, she gives credit to Lauryn Hill. She put the album up. It's not like she's trying to act like she wrote, like she wrote the music herself. So
I'm just making sure Lauryn Hill ain't no Anti-Zionist. Wait, what?
Oh Lord, I hope not. That would be such bad news.
I ain't even want to look. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. All right, so on to the encampments. So there's just so much going on right now, and I was really disturbed to see what happened at Emory today. I don't know if you caught all the video and everything. And I don't know how many other people caught what happened. And I think probably what disturbs me the most is the fact that I feel like this was the worst like attack on the students that I've seen since these encampments started. And then watching the videos, to have to just breathe and recognize, like, well, of course it would be, because they sent the black cops in to beat up the black students, and this is what happens. And so if you want to, we have a clip. I think it was multiple clips that they pulled together, and then we can talk.
This is one of our comrades here, the Rev.
Gianna, yep. Love her.
Y'all, this is Emory University. Emory University encampment for a free Palestine, where the police have come and tear gas and shot rubber bullets at students. They continue to deploy tear gas. They have tased. They tased someone who was already handcuffed. What do you want to do on one? Let him go! Let him go! Let him go!
Yeah, I saw that one.
Because I, an ordained reverend, co-pastor at Park Avenue Baptist Church in the city of Atlanta, am shocked and motherfucking appalled because I'm the only person wearing this bitch ass collar out here.
We're calling everyone in Atlanta to come and stand in solidarity with us here in the encampment, in solidarity with Palestine, against Cop City. We need as many bodies here as possible.
We need everybody to come to Emory if you can. Y'all come on. Come for these students. Please come for these students. Y'all, this is Emory University. Emory.
Well, that's interesting. I'm not going to comment on the people there, but the situation, right?
I'm not down there. So
I didn't notice them. I didn't notice them two was going to be in the video. But go ahead, let's go.
Oh. I can't. All right. So the other one, which is the UIC Professor Watch. Can you see that next to the word under the?
Oh yeah.
So this is a professor, and I think this might also be Emory. I'm not.
Yeah, it says here it's Emory Professor.
Right? All right. So not even the white folks are safe down there. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
She in the wrong place at the wrong time, is she? So I'm gonna large this one so we could see it this way.
Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Oh my God! Give me some cops. Oh my God! You be more fascist. You are Hitler. You are a rabid dog. Shame on you. May you never live another day.
I am a professor.
This is an Emory professor, everyone.
I am a professor.
You're a rabid dog.
So the professor didn't work. You're telling them you're a professor. Didn't get them off.
That's not going to help you. Not down there. That's not going to help you. And I don't know if it's going to help anybody anywhere, to be honest. Like I'm just not 100% sure. But I feel like I feel like this is moving into a territory of um like extremes that I don't think people were quite prepared for. Like I'm
Mhm.
sure that professor thought to herself, like, she gonna go on out there and she gonna try and help the students, and she's a professor and they're gonna listen. And I don't I don't think people understand what a dire situation it is to be in support of the Palestinian people in this country at this time,
Mhm.
because the cops are with the Zionists. So they're not trying to hear none of that. Like they don't.
So far as like 28 people that was arrested so far, or what?
At
What?
Emory
Yeah,
or in total?
it
Because
says Emory. 28
in,
at Emory.
but that's on top of the 104 at Columbia and the 40 something at NYU, and I think it's some outrageous number um, from Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn, which wasn't a college encampment, but was a gathering of Jewish folks and others who were protesting. I think there was another few in Boston. I mean, it's just you at USC. I think they arrested another 100 and something people. I mean, it's really. I mean, it's getting pretty outrageous, and I think what I hope would happen is that this would turn the tide a little bit in the sense of kind of awakening people to how bad it is when you live in a place that is actively working in support of a genocide,
Mhm.
that this is the response of the armed agents of the state to people who are having the audacity to like speak up. Right.
Right.
um and it's I
So
mean, I feel like everybody should be concerned, and I just don't know if everybody is.
I wonder how, again, with the training facility, Cop City,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how this will impact the legitimacy of it, right? Would people, I really would be shocked if people be like, see, this is why we need more trained cops and whatever. I would really be shocked if that happened. So I wonder what you think, if this is gonna like be fuel. It will be bring more light. Will there be an uptick in engagement? Or yeah, like I'm just, I can't see US or even Atlanta or even any the state using this as a way to legitimize why they need to have more cop cities to control more people on campus. But I don't know what you think.
So I guess it depends on what this does to the climate overall, right? Like if people, like I'm sometimes surprised when I see the responses that people write to these things, right? So like somebody posted and it was a picture of all the cops in LA that were getting ready to storm the group at USC. And someone responded to that picture and they were like, well, what do you expect? You're like putting up tents on private property. Like that was the response. And I was like, where do I live that this is the response that is coming? Like what is going on? And so if the presentation of this situation is, here are these children who are totally out of control and they're taking up space where they're not supposed to be, and they're violent and they're terrorists and like all these things. So we had to send the police in there to break that up because they shouldn't be there, right? Then it could certainly be used as an excuse to continue to push things like Cop City and this false notion of training and all these things. Because like even with what happened in Colombia, I don't know how many people realize that like for the first time in any time that I've ever seen a police like response to something, to actually read someone from the NYPD make a statement that the kids were peaceful and this wasn't necessary and they didn't need to arrest anybody. And I was like, who, like, did somebody hack the police, like the NYPD, and release that statement? Because I've never heard them talk like that. That said, it's Columbia University, right? You have a whole different criteria of student and person who's going to be on that campus. So maybe they're going to be a little more cautious with, you know, like how they manage that. But, you know, they started putting up encampments at the CUNY schools. And I'm curious to see what happens when the NYPD goes in there. Like, is there going to be a different treatment of those students, right? Because those are the students who probably had to go to a community college because, you know, they either weren't prepared, couldn't afford, whatever have you, to be somewhere else. There's a lot of older students who are returning to school. Like, it's a whole different type of student body at a CUNY school than at a Columbia University. So I'm curious to see what the aftermath of that is going to be. But I could definitely see them using this as an excuse this is why we need Cop City. This is why we need, you know, 100%. Because the state and the armed agents of the state and all, they're all on the wrong side of this. They're all on the wrong side of this. You muted. You forgot to unmute.
Had there been like, so I was trying to look and see like Princeton's free expression policy, like the First Amendment to the United States. It guarantees all members of the university community the broadest possible latitude to speak, write, listen, challenge, and learn. It specifically protects even speech that most members of the university community deem to be offensive, unwise, immoral, or wrongheaded. So I wonder if have you seen like, I guess maybe people who are touted to be leaders of the universities kind of speak out, the presidents or I don't want to even get to celebrities or pundits yet, but have you seen much
like
you know
speak out on behalf of the students?
Yeah, like
students?
or like presidents or higher ups in these universities. Have you seen in it? Okay.
No.
Positive or negative responses?
No, truthfully, mostly what I've seen are people who are trying to walk the line of, you know, it's both sides, making sure that they, you know, appropriately call out Hamas and, you know, all that stuff. And then really trying to make sure that what feels to me like they don't upset their donors and the governmental structures that are backing their institution. So one of the things that I found really interesting in listening to some of the congressional hearing that happened with Columbia University, I was, you know, listening to it, and it occurred to me as I was listening that there was this entire focus on, like, they have an entire task force that they created to like look into the anti-Semitism and, you know, to make sure that their Jewish students are protected and all these things. And I'm listening to this whole thing and thinking to myself, you know, it's really interesting that this is the path that is under scrutiny, because it was actually students who were supporting Palestine that got sprayed with skunk spray by the ex-IDF agents, right? When you watch sometimes very peaceful protests, it's the Zionists who comes in and starts like tearing things up and knocking people over and all these things. And there are no task forces that are looking into Islamophobia, right? They're not looking into protecting their Palestinian students from from the Zionism. They're not looking into, and I mean, shit, not for nothing. I mean, how many years of racism have existed on all these campuses? Was there a task force to protect the Africans? Like, right? So, like, I'm watching these things and I'm thinking to myself, like, this has really gone down this full-fledged path of like, we have to make sure that we wholeheartedly support and protect one group. And we're not going to worry about any harm that comes to any other group, even if that's the majority. You know what I mean? Like, it's bizarre to me. And it's really crazy to me that there is so much focus on anti-Semitism and, you know, this, they hate Jews and they're trying to kill the Jews. Like this concept that keeps floating, when at almost every one of these protests, there are Jewish people there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I have yet, every time I've gone out to a march, to a vigil, and I've been to a few now at this point, you know, to support the Palestinian cause and the struggle and all those things, there are always Jewish people there. Always. And so I'm trying to understand where this concept and this like diehard belief that if you are in support of the Palestinian people and you're trying to stand up to prevent genocide, and you don't support an occupying force, you don't support the stealing of land, you don't support all these things that are happening right now to an entire population of people, that it can make you an anti-Semitic, like it can make you anti-Semitic even when you're standing there sharing a voice with a Jewish person who agrees with you. Like, how does that work?
You know, I wonder, well, and this is probably off, but the HBCUs, have you seen, because I don't know, at least in Atlanta, that I've seen much on there, but have you seen the responses on HBCU campuses? Or
So, to my knowledge, there are not. Now, I saw a post today that indicated that there was someone from Morehouse. There was a young man from Morehouse and a young woman from Spelman who were at Emory today, and both were arrested. So I can only take the guess that, you know, they're kind of coming off campus to do these things. Now, there was a post that was going around from a presentation at Spelman, and I do not remember the person's name from the US government who was on the stage, and she got called out by members of the audience. But she had been invited by Spelman to do a presentation, right? There's this whole controversy right now because apparently Biden's speaking at Morehouse's commencement, right? You know, when Donald Trump went to Atlanta, it was nothing but Black people around him, you know, cheering him on. So
it was a little stage, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they staged it well, because anybody who watches that mess will think that that's what really happened, right? Like, people, and I'm learning this more and more and more, people readily accept the things that they watch as like reality, and they don't stop to say, like, that don't really make no sense. Like, how exactly did that play out just that way in that moment, right? Like, they don't ask those questions a lot of times. I'm not going to say everybody doesn't, but like, people don't ask those questions. So how does that work? How does that happen, that like you can watch something that looks completely asinine and think to yourself, oh yeah, that makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
So so the other links that I shared on there are just some different articles about, you know, following what's happening. But that USA Today article that's and column D. The other ones are just like, but the USA Today one has a interactive map that shows like where the encampments are and where people have been arrested. And wait, that's the Time Magazine one. This article is good, but it's the Time Magazine one. Underneath.
Wait, you said column D? Oh, under. Oh, okay, yeah, my bad. Oh, this map looks kind of cool.
Right. So you got to shout out, and I don't even know. Do y'all even realize how many people be on the BPM Discord like chatting?
I don't even know. I ain't never been on it myself, so I can't. Listen, I don't know how to use a lot of technology. I'm gonna just be honest with you. No, I'll be very overwhelmed with them stuff. So
shout out to Dwayne, because Dwayne posted a picture of a map, and I was like, oh, where'd you get this? Can I use it on Saturday? And then he sent me the link to this article. He had actually gotten it from
you can't click on the dots.
No, you gotta scroll down.
Oh,
that's the header, man. Oh, Kichi.
I just want to click dots, man. I'm just want to click dots.
I can't.
Oh wait, where Houston? Oh, Houston right here, right? That's where I'm at right now.
Texas. Yeah.
Houston right there. Ain't nothing going on over here. Oh wow. So this is the more than 30 universities that they're talking about. UNC Charlotte, Emory.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So the thing I appreciate is, so, obviously Columbia, and let me correct myself. I don't know that Columbia was the first college where they decided to do something that was going to get like a semi big response, but that's the first one that I heard people talking about is at Columbia. Now, obviously I'm in New Jersey, so that's also closest to me, which might also be part of the reason that that's the one I heard about. But what I appreciate about all of this is that they sent the police in, that whole thing happened, they broke up the encampment, they arrested 100 people, and then like the next day, like 12 more encampments popped up, right? Like it's almost like the kids were like, y'all are wildin'. Like you thought that was gonna deter us. We just gonna start putting them up in different places now. Like that's what's gonna happen.
Berkeley popped off.
Yeah. Yale, MIT,
Stanford,
Emerson. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised, right? But at the same time, I wonder if the places where these things are happening are gonna allow it to now be part of the conversation, because this is not just regular old working folks.
The whole UT, all the campuses popped off.
Yes.
Isn't Rice connected to the UT system?
Rice is private.
I thought it was something. Private. Okay, I thought something was something about them in UT.
I mean, they could very well work with the UT system. I don't know, but it is a private school.
Urbana, Indiana,
Miami, so Ohio. A lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Michigan.
So I was listening to the radio this morning, and I don't want to go into too much of it because I don't want anybody to be mad at me for bringing it up. But there was a conversation on the radio, and the statement was basically like, all these protests and encampments and stuff is all performative. And if you really want to
wait, who said that? Where?
No. No.
All right. Okay. All right. We'll keep it PG.
And I'm bringing it up only because there's a tweet link also on there of someone else who is basically saying the same, like saying something somewhat similar. And someone else I also heard saying like, this is stupid. These things are a waste of time. Like, why are people investing their time and energy in this? One person was like, if you really want to do something, go get on a plane and go to Gaza. And I was like, how are you going to get on a plane and go to Gaza? How? Like physically, like how do you get on a plane and go to Gaza? Do you know? Because there is no way to get on a plane and go to Gaza. Right? So like this assertion that like all these students that are building encampments here, they should all get on a plane and go to Gaza and go fight in Gaza, and that would serve more purpose.
Right.
And you know, I think sometimes, although I get it, like you watch protests, and I mean, people have been protesting about however many things for however many decades, and very few things change. But the things that have even seen even a smidgen of change, it only happens because people rise up and do something, right? Like until Coca-Cola realized that they were going to start losing money if people stopped drinking Coca-Cola, they would have been supporting the apartheid in South Africa forever. Right? And I literally remember when Coca-Cola announced that they were going to divest from South Africa. And it was like within no time, all of a sudden, all of a sudden, apartheid in South Africa was a problem. Right? And so I think while people can, be like, oh, protests don't work or whatever, like how else do you call attention to an issue that people really are not understanding, hearing about, trying to learn about, like any of those things? Like, how do you get people to understand that there is something that they need to pay attention to without actually like forcing them to pay attention to it? So if you don't have these rich kids or these specific college campuses now kind of rising up, I mean, there have been, I don't even know how many protests in solidarity with Gaza since even before last October, like going way, way back, right? But even if we say since October, and there has not been a true public discourse about how many people have stepped up to try and stand with the Palestinian people, to call out the genocide, to call out, the killing of how, now it's like over 50,000 people in Palestine. But now all of a sudden it is part of the conversation, and it's on the like everybody is talking about these encampments, like every news channel, every major meet, like it's like all of a sudden now that people are speaking up for Palestine is part of the public conversation, and it's only happening because of these encampments.
So is there like a insinuation that like there is some opportunism or something that's happening, and these not so whatever campuses or groups are like, what's the, I guess the insinuation, or like the more so, or the basis of the performative?
I couldn't really, it was a little hard to like follow what the person was truly like getting at with their comment. And I think what they were basically saying is like, you're doing all of this and you're protesting and you're trying to get like the US government to make some change based on protest. That's not going to work. But that's not actually what the kids are asking for. Like that may be one of the things on the list. But to my knowledge, a lot of them have started to understand and recognize that their tuition money is going to Israel. Right? So Columbia specifically has an exchange program, right? MIT has an exchange program. So there are a lot of these campuses that have exchange programs, or they're taking money from the DoD, or they're working in partnership with some branch of the military. And these kids are understanding that their tuition money is going to support these efforts to kill off brown people in other parts of the world, and they don't want to be party to that. And so in Colombia, one of the requests is to divest.
I saw one of those. Colombia has rental units, Airbnb in Israel or occupied Palestine. That, like, I was kind of, you know, I didn't more.
I didn't see that, but I would not be surprised. I mean, just, you know, it's almost outlandish to me that there is so much business that is going between this country and Israel, and I don't know if people have even taken a moment to just like Google it and see like how much there is between these two places. And it's something that people need to understand, because in the end, this is all about imperialism and capitalism. Like, that's all this is all about. Like, it's all about imperialism and capitalism. And if you are just simply going to sit back and like be mad because you feel like people should be protesting in a different way, right? Like, I just feel like it's such an unfortunate attempt to discredit like what people are doing that is actually bringing the situation to the forefront. Like, I was just like, at this point, I'm just like, it's just good to see people actually on the news talking about the fact that there are people who support Palestine, because for months, all we've heard about is, you know, that Israel has the right to defend itself. And, you know, like the story has been pretty programmed for a long time going now about who is the party that you should support and who is the party you should not support. And I mean, however many hundreds of, like, they had wasn't it like 500,000 people that went to DC months ago? It didn't even make a blink. It didn't even blink on mainstream media. They ain't paid no mind. None. People have been marching for months. People have been doing vigils. And there's an area in Jersey, they do a vigil every Sunday at the same time. And they've been doing it for months. So it's not as if these acts of support and solidarity and all these things are not happening, but no one was paying attention. And you have all these people in Palestine, press, regular people, Basan, like all these people who are all the time, like just sharing these videos of like this hellscape that they're living in. And it's not being picked up. Nobody's talking about that. So you know what? If the kids decided that they were going to put some tents up on the lawn and they were going to, you know, sing and dance and peacefully like show that they're going to be in solidarity with this group of, you know, this entire population of people who are literally being wiped off the face of the earth, and it forces AP News to pay attention, and NBC all of a sudden is paying attention. And like all these people now are talking about how all these people are standing with Palestine and what is happening, right? Like, as a result, I'm having a hard time being mad at that.
Yeah, I think maybe it was what we was reading in Jackson Rising Redux, and one of the articles or the essays are talking about how, again, like the organizing on the ground and all the things that it took to even get to that point, where a lot of times we just celebrate like the last part of it, not like the day-to-day on the ground. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say the last part, but the most violent part, whatever you want to call it. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think that's a interesting thing in terms of, like, you know how people say all media, all publicity, all media is good, or And if somebody were to, you know, in bad faith did something on a campus, like what is, like, it's not like it could steal momentum from what's going on, right? It could only, I guess,
I mean,
help it.
that's my take. I mean, I know that there have been intentional pushes of students with, bad takes because, they're kids. Not everybody's camera ready. And so I know, there's been a promotion at times of like, the kid who gets caught out there saying the thing that just does not like play well on replay. But,
Okay.
I think for the most part, they have been very clear in their demands and, what they're seeking to happen in response. And what I'd love to not see happen is for it to not take this bend of like, these kids are totally out of control and why are they doing this? Like when you look at what's going on at USC and this focus on like, oh, it got so unsafe that now they had to cancel, their main stage graduation. And so somebody said that to me, like, oh, that's so messed up. They had to cancel the main stage graduation. And I was like, okay, but you got to take a step back because there would be no need, like nothing that has come out of what's going on at USC is happening like in a vacuum. If they didn't cancel the valedictorian's ability to do the commencement speech, which is historically what happens at every college, right? Like, because they were afraid that she was going to say something that was pro-Palestine in her speech. And they wanted to make sure that they prevented that from being able to happen. And so people got pissed. And the reaction to that was to rise up against USC and say, like, why are you silencing this Muslim woman who worked so hard and got the highest GPA at your university? And now all of a sudden you're changing everything that's always historically been done in order to prevent her from being able to say something that you don't want her to say. Right. And so, like, how does that work? Like to just now be all focused on like how the students responded and all those things and not take into account the fact that this actually started when you decided you were going to silence the valedictorian and not allow her to do her commencement speech.
Is there I know you said, I don't know what you can talk about, but in terms of like high school and other, middle school, high school particular, did you say there were some like,
oh, there's been a whole, there's an article from The Guardian and it's a few months old now, but it's on the run sheet that is talking about the school districts that have kind of pushed back against their teachers and their staff who are making any attempt to like teach about Palestine and teach about what's happening in Palestine with their students. And I thought this was interesting because they're not wrong. It was swift and it was for real, like backlash. And it's not just one place, it happened in California, it's happening in Maryland, it's still going on. If you pull up, and there's no link for this, but Jared and I talked about it a few weeks ago. There's a federal like body that investigates Title 11 issues, like, religious things in publicly funded colleges, universities, and school districts. And in 2022, there were like 17 cases. And then in 2023, it was like 19 cases, and I'm just guessing on the numbers because I don't fully remember. It was in the teens. And from November 1st to that day when I searched, and this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was 79 cases. So what is essentially happening is a full out assault on the educational system across the board, from elementary school up to the college and university level at this point now, of shutting down any attempt at all to provide information about Palestine. And what I find really disturbing about it is, and this is my opinion, is part of the reason you have so many issues. You know, like there's some schools where they're like, oh, the anti-Semitic attacks have really gotten out of control. And I'm sure for some students that is true. But I also feel like part of the reason that that is happening is because there's no attempt to have like actual discourse and discussion and education and like allow critical thinking about why these things are happening. So if you're a student who no one is talking to you about like what is actually happening, right? And all you know is that Palestine has Jewish people who moved there, and then that's where the problem started. And you don't understand that there's an actual fundamental difference between being a Zionist Jew and I don't know what the word is. I guess a non-Zionist Jew is what I hear. You know, self-referral, right? You're either non-Zionist Jew or you're a Zionist Jew,
Right.
And if you don't know that there's a fundamental difference between those two, that train of thought, right? You may easily just be like, it's all Jewish people. And I could see someone who has no understanding and who no one is attempting to give any understanding about what's actually happening, making that mistake. And then you start just attacking all the wrong people because you don't even understand what the difference is.
So my barber was telling me like how surprised he was that his son came home talking about socialism because they was teaching something about socialism. And I was like, well, in my mind, I think like, well, because there's an uptick in the conversation around it, maybe the state would have to try to paint the narrative like they do with the movie industry. So if there's an uptick in Black Panther Party, they'll make a Judas and Black Messiah. Same thing with Malcolm X. Well, wouldn't that be the case with this situation too? Like where the school would probably look like they're meeting head on to like talk about it, but obviously put a a pro-Jewish or pro-Zionist spin on it. Like, would you say that's the thing?
So I know in one district specifically that when things really started to kick up, there was this big push to to combat the anti-Semitism. And so they sent out these lesson plans. And the lesson plans were from the ADL. Right. And I was like, when my friend told me, like, yo, these lesson plans are from the, I was like, what do you mean? And they were literally like so that's like crazy. You know what I mean? And that same district at another time tried to send out information about Ramadan. And within within the documents about Ramadan, there was, mention of the word like Zionist, mention of the word genocide. It was only in one thing of all the things that were there, but like it caused this huge like upheaval, right? Like this big problem because that information was being shared. And so you just have to start thinking to yourself, like, how can this work in a system that is truly so one-sided that even the people who are setting the policy about the curriculum and the things that you can and can't teach are setting it in such a way that you are hindering the ability for the people who are probably most capable of attempting to teach the information. Like, you're completely blockading that. That's not even an option for them to present that information. Like, if you listen to that Senate hearing, when they were talking to the Columbia professor, one of the questions was basically like, like, I read through your curriculum and I don't see any classes that teach how important Israel is to Judaism. And I was like, like, wait, I mean, like, why does that have to be part of the curriculum? I don't understand, what I don't understand, like, how that became so essential that if you're not teaching the history of Judaism, or, if that's not part of like how your teaching strategy is for world religions or anything like that, like, that's the problem. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like the whole system is setting us up to have this continuum of this problem where you can't have a real conversation about what's happening, because you may not really know what's happening. And you don't really know what's happening because the system is preventing anyone who knows what's happening from sharing that actual information with you. And then you end up with these bad takes on stuff. And then now you actually are creating an environment of anti-Semitism because people don't actually know the history and they don't actually know what happened. And it's not even allowed to be part of the conversation. Like, you can't even bring it up. There's some schools where the teachers won't even bring up Israel and Palestine. Even if they're history teachers, they're not bringing it up. And how does that work?
It's interesting. I've been out of the school, any of the programs or any consulting for a while, and it would be interesting to see, like, even like as I think about schools in Baltimore, on how, if any, young people are kind of dealing with it. And then even with the Palestinian garb or anything like that, I wonder if that's like, it's been a thing in schools, because I just haven't seen much about that in I guess in that level, that grade school of high school and stuff like that.
You said Palestinian garb, like, you mean like keffiyehs and stuff?
Yeah, like if that's been, if any of that been like kind of among students in anywhere, like, so as I think of like in Baltimore and schools in Baltimore, like, I'm just curious. And I know, younger students in colleges like Morgan State and other places, they are, in solidarity, but I just haven't seen much about high school students. And, you're probably like the first person in that grade school that I, as a professor, as a teacher, that can talk about it, at least on the show. But I just wonder how that's been going across, the country.
So, so it's funny because I have a story for you, but I'm not going to tell it on the air. We'll have to talk about it later. But I will say that I know in my school, I have students in my school who are Palestinian, who can tell stories about their grandparents being removed from their towns in Palestine and never being allowed to go back. And I don't think those students, to my knowledge, are comfortable wearing their keffiyehs to school. Like, I'm trying to think if I've seen any of them like walking in with their keffiyeh on, and I just can't recall. I don't think I see it. And I personally don't think it would be, I don't know that, I mean, they certainly couldn't stop them from wearing them, but there is definitely there's definitely a negative bent that's going to come with making that choice. And it's because I think this is the issue in a lot of districts. The Zionist Jews may not be the largest like group in your school or in your district, but they are certainly going to be the loudest. So, it can be a problem. Like it's a lot. And if you're a high school student, you're just trying to go to school and get out. Like sometimes the things that these adults will do are totally out of pocket. Like there's a district in New York, in North Jersey, where the Zionists showed up at the school to confront other people's children. And it was like a big mess. And so, yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess I wouldn't be surprised. Like, you have like the Bakari sellers and the other people who will tell you that they're Black Zionists. So I guess if those politicians can do that, it'll be, I guess more so interesting to see how administration and teachers, and if there's some type of internal struggle with them on being able to like represent this. And then again, as the protests and the contradictions get heightened even more, I guess they will be forced to deal with it at some point. And as you said, the wrong side is probably not going. I think people will kind of like their hand to be forced because they don't want to be on the wrong side anymore. Because I'm pretty sure it's documented that people have been on the wrong side, and switching or now saying something it will be interesting.
Right. And I think also, like there was a whole lot said about the Claudine Gay. Was that Harvard? Yeah, which one was that? Harvard?
Yeah.
And for me, she was like a perfect representation of like why you can't think the fact that somebody elevated you to a certain position is going to protect you when they decide that you're not serving their purpose well enough, right? Like, and she tried her best. She really did. She tried her best to like walk that, both sides, and making sure she condemned the right people, and then she said everything the right way. And in the end, it didn't save her or her job, right? Like it didn't help at all that she tried to walk that fence. And sometimes I really just want people to like just side with humanity and like stop all this like nonsense of like making sure you don't offend certain people and make sure you condemn the right people, like all this bullshit. Like there are people dying. Like how do you have time for like word navigation when like people are literally dying? I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it at all. I'm sick of it. And I think people who, like this vote blue no matter who crowd, and these people who think you're like outrageous if you don't want to vote for Biden, and all this complete like misunderstanding of the problem. Like I just want them all to just shut up. Like I want them all to just shut up and just stop. And just stop. I don't even want to engage in it anymore, because it's so sickening to me that you will sit back and like be fully clear and cognizant of the fact that there is a literal genocide happening, and not think it's worth like speaking out about.
Rough times.
Yeah. All right. So the reason we got sidetracked for a little bit longer than I had anticipated. So what I had really intended on talking to you a whole lot about was this whole organizing plan regarding policy and engaging people, and this conversation that we've had a couple of times about like how do we work on organizing around like policy and around the things that really matter. And so I fell down a rabbit hole because I was trying to figure out, like, how do you backtrack policy? Like, if there is something wrong in a community, how do you backtrack that problem to the policy that either made it worse or made it happen, right? Like, how do you figure that out? And so I was thinking about like the water crisis in Flint, right? And how when people were getting sick and the water was brown and all these things were happening, that in that initial moment, people just thought like it was like something random that was happening. And then it took a minute for them to realize, oh, it's where the water is coming from and the pipes and the, like, you know what I mean? And to backtrack that whole thing to the point where someone in the Flint government decided that they were going to make a switch of where the water was coming from. And they were going to make that switch because they didn't care that that switch was going to negatively impact the people who were living in the community of Flint, Michigan. And at the point that they made that decision, no one knew except the people who made the decision, right? None of the people who were going to be impacted knew what the future ramifications of that decision, like what those were going to be. So, you know, I'd pick on that specifically because there's a documentary that just came out about Flint, or is about to come out, in something Status Quo and Jordan Sheridan is doing, and he has a book that's about to come out later this summer because he was able to backtrack and figure out all the corrupt shit that was going on in Flint that led to that decision. And so that really got me to thinking about this whole idea of like backtracking policy and figuring out, like, within a specific community, like what is the thing that needs to change? Why does it need to change? And why does it exist the way it exists in this moment that created the problem that is requiring the change? And so I started looking for it. And then I was like, good, Geeche's coming on. Maybe Geeche knows, like.
I don't know, but I normally can find the answer. but no, I mean, I think that's important, right? So, because whenever I, even think about the political project and then creating apparatus for us to kind of all tie into, so we can kind of get out of our silos. Mm-hmm. But the U.S. has this way of making sure that people believe that it's all powerful and it's going to continue to stand, and it could have, almost like Donald Trump said, like he can shoot somebody and people still vote for him. Like, right. The contradictions can be there and people still be like, oh, that's because it's my fault, or whatever the case may be. Right. And so this like fully invasive psychic assault that happens on the majority of citizens, where the way in which they look at problems at best have them take non-confrontational responses to, what's happening. So, for instance, Flint water goes bad. Somebody a black person started a black business selling water, right? so you go buy some Dasani and sell it. Like, so again, and nobody looks at, okay, well, what happened? And because public policy is public, it's a record of how people voted and what they're doing.
Right. And
so it's, and the people who are actually organizing in those spaces, they know what happened, but they also don't have, some type of connection to a larger critical mass of people to out propagandize the people from what the state will do. Mm-hmm. And so majority of people are, like you were saying, unaware that there's laws and regulations and different things that negatively impact the material conditions of our people. And there's propaganda that, again, as I was saying, let you overlook that and then blame yourselves for, for what's going on. And so now you're not in control of your life sustaining resources. And you know that because, the water is bad, or the air is bad, or you don't have arable land. You live in a food apartheid situation. And again, all these things connect to some public policy that started it. And then there's different public policies that maintain those in different levels.
Right.
So you literally, how people say follow the money. You always can kind of tie back and go back to like public policy. You always can go back to areas of frustration in your life where you can look at, okay, this office or this public policy in this city, this is where those people make decisions that impact that. And if we want that to change, these people can also make decisions to change that. But again, and then I think once people get emotionally connected to the source of what laws and regulations and these different things are causing this, I just think it becomes a different situation. Like, as you can see with Palestine, once people are literally seeing that these people giving us this amount of water for this amount of time, there's no way we can survive off that. There has to be something that changed. And so, yeah, so I think that's kind of like the struggle, right? And so, we talked about this before, but I'm proposing to like pick up this thing that Maynard Jackson tried to accomplish before, where he was trying to, I guess, I don't know what he was trying to do, to be honest with you, other than because the way I read it, the way he was trying to do it, it was like essentially what I would say, like, we don't want to be swayed around by candidates who trot out celebrities to make you vote for them. And we want to know, like, what policies that you impact. Now, again, I don't know exactly what made him fumble this. But I think just people and involved in themselves in like a cultural thing of like knowing public policies, having a conversation, talking about it. And even if we, like the lady that you had earlier, like, who she could take a popular song, something that people already talk about, and twist the lyrics around, just as well as like somebody can sing that song because they remember it, because songs is a form of teaching.
Right.
Like, that tool should be very similar to that. Like, you should literally be able to blurt out 10 to 20 policies that impact you. Right. So cleaning the water treatment system, you should know who is responsible for that, who isn't, and why is this water hard as hell and why this water dirty as hell, but for some reason up there in the hills they got clean water or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, I think and then it's more so than, again, we might not always, individuals might not know the answers, but I'm pretty sure the paper trail of finding those things are not hard, as if, again, activists and people who are in spaces already have those answers, and just connecting with them seems to be the thing.
And do you think if you are within a community, so one of my struggles a lot with with what happens in Newark in particular, just because, I pay attention a lot to what's happening in Newark, but I don't live in Newark. Right. And so I'm prone to say often that, like, I'll come to Newark if somebody tells me come out and come do this thing and can help and whatever have you. But I am not under any circumstance going to be the person who rolls into Newark and tells somebody in Newark what they need to do in Newark to fix Newark, right? Like, that is not my place. That's not my role. And so I guess one of the things that I'm always curious about is, like, how do you get people to engage in that way, right? Because people have to know that something's not right, right? Like, they have to know when they're looking around their communities, like something here is not like right. And so how do you get them to engage in And I'm asking you, but I don't know if you're going to, because I certainly don't know the answer. So I'm throwing the question out there. But how do you get people to engage in a conversation about trying to even determine the thing that they need to fix? Like if you're just trying to get through your day, you get up, you go to work, you get home, you're tired, you got to eat, you got to clean, you got to do whatever so you can start all over again in the morning, right? How do you get someone who is just trying to get through their day to engage in a conversation about why things are the way they are and why their life has turned into this cycle of like, get up, go to work, sleep, get up, go to work, sleep, and just ignore all the things that are part of the system that is forcing you to live in that cycle?
Yeah, so I think for how I have done in terms of like developing research questions that leads to allowing people to answer their frustrations, right? So, you know, through asking questions, you can see that somebody's not getting paid enough money. Through asking questions, you can see that roads are a certain type of way. Through asking questions, you can see that water is shit, whatever. And I feel like the goal is not to really take the 10 to 20 policies to the people. The goal is to understand what people need in different communities and cities and regions, and then develop those policies out of that, or look at the policies that impact those things that they say are their frustration. So, for instance, if the thing is like, you know, I have to go to work this, like for instance, I remember doing a survey in West Baltimore, and it was like this girl, she was a little girl, she was like 5 or younger, and I was surveying her mom, but she kept answering the questions. Like she was like, yeah. And then at the end, she like kind of grabbed me. She said, "You know what you should do? You should give everybody on this block a house and let them paint it the color that they want, so that they know which house is theirs." so she's talking about housing security, right? And she,
Right.
I mean, and so I think that type of conversation, those kind of conversations, or developing questions to kind of see what people consider to be their barriers. And then once they explain to your barriers, you take us and other people and different people to kind of understand, okay, well, if their barriers is, let's say, for instance, they don't have enough money to pay for this thing. Well, the maximum wage or the livable wage will be one policy that they will be struggling for.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, in this area, like one of these research did this areas of incarcerated family members in Baltimore, and how their resources or their income is lower. So one of those policies can be reinstating voting rights to convicted felons who pay their debts to society. Or I mean, it really just depends. Like as you're asking people questions, I think when they laying out their frustrations and things that they deem as barriers, that allows you to open up to a larger conversation of getting to say, okay, hey, so you say this thing is a problem, and you pay your car tax, you pay sales tax, you pay you know, if you got different housing taxes, and every time that you do that, the city spend this tax dollars to do this thing.
Right.
And like, so if let's say to rebuild Druid Hill, like, do you want Druid Hill rebuilt, or do you want universal basic income, or do you want these other things? And I feel like, again, a lot of these policies, there are some things that will be local, but then some things will be statewide and national, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how it can connect. So it might look like slightly different in different communities. So again, you're not going to go to Patterson, New Jersey, and be like, hey, this is the 10 to 20 policies that directly impact you. Some of them might be the similar, but it might be something differently in Newark, and then each city. And I feel like, again, having conversations, surveying the community, and finding, you know, what they deem to be the sources of their frustration is a way to kind of get that on paper, so that you and us and people who do research can kind of connect it to the public policies that's impacting it.
Okay. And that's fair, because those are the long, like those are those, you know, like you door knock, and those are the long conversations that you're going to have about like community needs. And I mean, one of my big issues with politicians is I feel like these conversations only happen in election cycles, and then they come to you with their pre-prescribed list of what they think you should be worried about, and then they only talk to you about those things, and then there's never like that open-ended question of like, okay, well, what do you want, right? Like that just never happens. And I've been having these conversations about that Cop City map, and one of the things that I've been asked consistently, and so consistently that I think I'm actually going to have to write something to explain why I don't want to define what a cop city is, because I don't want anyone to get trapped in this idea that it has to be a certain thing in order for you to be mad about it. Right? Like it doesn't have to be 85 acres and $90 million. And, you know, it doesn't have to be that for you to be pissed that they're putting your community resources into something that the community doesn't need. And what I always say is like, they don't ever go out into the community and do a survey like, okay, you know what, we're going to raise $50 million. What do we want? Right? That's not the question.
And sometimes they do it and they don't, it's just like performative. If you really want to talk about performative, sometimes they do that. And I would add one, like there's organizations who sometimes do that too, whether it's nonprofits or other organizations where they're really not going and engage and see what the community want and what they're into and how they connect. They're really saying, hey, this is our line. This is what is important to us. And we're trying to get you to push our line. Right. And I think, again, we should have like a hella serious conversation about what, you know, some people coin non-reformist reforms, and really consider how we can remove barriers for organizers and to be organizers. Because a lot of times people don't have time to study, don't have time to do these other things because of some of these barriers that reforms, certain type of reforms will help, you know, release. And then if you're removing barriers for organizers and everyday people who are fed up with their material conditions, it just will be important for them and all of us to know that there's like short-term fights that we can win and struggle through to get kind of like the long-term thing, right? So if you talk about, you know, anti-imperialism or stop funding all these other things, if people know how Palestine, Haiti, and all these other things connect to their daily lives,
right?
I mean, I think it'll be more of a fight, and not only that, but like I think it's important for us to be able to connect all those dots. Like for instance, I remember someone was telling me how there's a place in Charleston, South Carolina, who makes some of the chemicals that are being used on the Palestinian people. Right? And so they're them going to work is producing something that's killing somebody over there. Right. And so I think it's important that like we do that more often for a couple of reasons, because now it kind of connects us. So that your cousin over there in the corner talking about food sovereignty and you talking about, you know, anti-imperialism, and this other person talking about capitalism, y'all all can have something that y'all connect to.
Right, because it's all from the same problem. All at the core of the same problem. So real quick, because I know we got to get you off so you can go eat because it's like late, and I also have to get up in the morning. And this is all Jared's fault, everybody, because we're gonna blame the person who's not on the screen. It's all Jared's fault. But I sent you a Google form, right? So here's my grand idea, because I just want to see what would happen if we push this Google form out to the BPM chat community and just answer it and see what comes back, right? Would that be crazy?
I don't think it'll be crazy. I think we can finalize some of the questions, because I feel like sometimes it's good to ask vague but then also leading questions. So, but yeah, I think
so. Each question has 10 topics, and we're telling people basically
racism,
like
police and housing,
right?
healthcare.
Like basically pick your top 5 that are most important to you,
Oh, okay, I see now. I see
right?
now. Okay.
And then there's an option for none of the above. So like if you only have 2 things you really care about, you can pick none of the above for the other 3 places. Or if you don't think any of these are your top issues and you want to, the second to last question is what's missing from the list,
Right.
right? So if we put this out there to the BPM and just say, y'all answer these questions, just because I'm you know how I get with my research and numbers and spreadsheets. So I'm just curious, like what would we be able to formulate like an actual list of talking points for whenever we're having any conversation with anybody about policy, politics, electoral politics, election, whatever, that we can say, we asked the BPMers and this is what they care about. So let's talk about that. Like, is that a crazy idea?
No, I don't think that's a crazy idea. I think that's actually a pretty cool idea. And again, I think maybe we could toggle some of these things. But yeah, I think that'll be actually a good idea.
All right. So y'all, we're gonna end in a minute because Keach got to eat and I got to go to bed, and it's mad late on the East Coast and I got to go to work in the morning. And so we're going to end here, but I'm going to task Geechee to sit with me off air and we're going to clean up this Google form. And then once we clean up the Google form,
can I bring my coconut calamari?
So goofy. Once we clean up the Google form, we're going to send it out and we're going to see if we can get some responses so that we can actually come up with an idea of some real policy things that are worth having a conversation about per the Africans here. Look, gotta do something. Because I can't just sit back. I gotta do something. So this is gonna be one of my new projects. I just finished a big project yesterday, released it, so it's done.
Do it.
All right, so everybody, thank you. We're ending early. Sorry, it's a pre-record. Sorry, blame Jared. Just joking. Don't blame Jared. Jared had things to do. But I'm truly, truly appreciative that Geechee came on because he has to log in and I wouldn't have been able to do anything if he hadn't joined.
You'd have been sitting backstage just talking.
Like, I don't know. What's we supposed to do now?
Just sitting backstage, just like do your whole show.
So thank you to all for joining. Be sure to share, like, all the good stuff. And if you have ideas about what needs to be on this Google form, send it to me so that I can, when we get together. And my goal is going to be for the next Saturday show that we have like an actual Google form. So that gives you and me like a week and a half to commiserate and try and get it done.
Let's do it.
So, all right. Thanks, Geech. Appreciate you. Thanks to the chat. Don't be mad that it's a pre-record. And we'll see you next time.
See y'all yesterday.
Saturday with Renee.